Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video. I'm really excited to make this because inside this package are 4 iPads. Yeah, it doesn't really look like they would fit in there. I was pretty surprised as well. Hopefully they're not damaged, but this is going to be a pretty cool lot of 4 iPads. We should have an iPad 1st gen, 2nd gen, I think maybe 2 2nd gens and a 3rd gen. They're pretty unique. These things are pretty rare. There's some cool devices in here. So enough talk. Let's get this thing opened up, see what kind of condition they're in, and find out what iPads we've got, and hopefully it's going to be some cool stuff. All right, let's begin. Okay, here we go. So we've got ourselves 2 black iPads. I believe these are 2nd gens. And these are all in really rough condition in terms of being absolutely filthy. Actually, I think this is an iPad 3, just like that. That's how they came from the factory, actually, with that 3 right there. That's how you could tell them apart. So that's an iPad 3. This is definitely an iPad 2. It feels much lighter. Of course, here we have an iPad 1st gen with some who knows what protector here on the back. That's just more dirty than anything. Gonna have to clean that up. That's a 32 gig model. And the front is filthy as well. And here we go. This is, I guess this is a 2nd gen. Also very dirty, 64 gig model. And we got a smart cover with some filth on it. So, whoops, that was a little bit of a sneak peek for you guys. Let me get these things cleaned up, and then we're going to talk about the specs and figure out what's so special about these iPads. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the one that I think is least interesting, and that's going to be this iPad 2nd gen here. This one's actually got a password on it, so that is actually not interesting at all. Let's see if we can guess it. Nope. 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 So I have to figure out how to deal with that, but this is an iPad 2nd gen, and this is a 64 gig model, so I should be able to restore this and basically get rid of that password, no problem. So we'll go ahead and set this iPad to the side. Next up, we have our iPad 3rd gen. Now this one's a bit interesting. This one is running iOS 7. As you can see there, we do have an iCloud account, which is unfortunate. Let me head into settings, general, and you guys can see this is actually iOS 7.0, so literally the first version of iOS 7. It is a 64 gig model, which is cool to see, and this is an AT&T 4G iPad, so that is pretty nice. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys saw that, but Find My iPad is turned on, so gonna have to see what I can do to get that figured out. Sometimes the passwords are literally inside the Note app, so we will see what happens. Looks like it's not there, but iOS 7 is really rare on devices that don't typically end support with that, which is everything except the iPhone 4. So getting an iPad 3rd gen, even if it's as dirty as this one on iOS 7 and 7.0, let alone, that is pretty cool. So this is very nice, but we got some work to do with that iCloud account. We'll see if we can message the owner, figure out what happened to this. Hopefully this iPad wasn't stolen, but see if we can get that iCloud removed, or if this was stolen at some point, we'll get this thing back to its rightful owner and let them know that it's actually pretty special, and they could probably make a little bit of money selling this thing for a collector or someone who's interested in iOS 7.0. because that's pretty hard to find. So yeah, there's an iPad 3rd gen. Retina display on iOS 7 is pretty rare, and I feel like we need to check out those iOS 7 wallpapers because they look so nice, especially on this iPad Retina display. So we'll go ahead and go into the stills here. Let me turn up the brightness, and then we can take a look here at some of the iOS 7 stock wallpapers. They look so clean on this Retina display. It's not very often we get to see the iOS 7 wallpapers on this kind of a display because no iPad ends support on iOS 7, and it's pretty hard to find an iPad 3, 4, or an iPad Air 1st gen that still has iOS 7 on it, so that is pretty cool. Very, very nice. So we'll go ahead and let this one sit over here, and we'll pick up our next iPad, which is going to be this iPad 2nd gen. You may have seen a sneak peek when I was unboxing them, but this one is apparently running iOS 4. As you can see down here, we've got the iPod icon instead of music, which means that this is going to be iOS 4. Let's head into settings, general, and about. And you can see we're running 4.3.3. This is a 64 gig model with Verizon 3G, so literally top of the line, maxed out iPad, still running iOS 4. So that is really cool. And we don't have to worry about any sort of iCloud locks because you can literally just sign out of an iCloud account if it was signed in. There's no Find My support for iOS 4. Now, let me get on the Wi-Fi here because I do want to test out the iOS 4 App Store as well as the iTunes Store. As far as I know, they are not working. It's kind of been on and off. It seems like sometimes the App Store works and then it goes down again, but then it comes back. But it's not been working for quite some time. I don't think it's worked at all here in 2024. It was working at the end of 23, but unfortunately the App Store and the iTunes Store are not working anymore. I believe iOS 7 is the oldest version that actually supports being able to actually load into the iTunes and the App Store. There may be some jailbreak tweaks. Someone leave me a comment down below if you know of any ways to fix App Store, iTunes, and maybe even YouTube. But if we could get the App Store working again, that would be fantastic on iOS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be super cool. So there you have an iPad 2nd gen, 64 gig, 3G model. This one is also filthy, got some fingerprints on it, but this adhesive needs some work to get off. Super cool device. We'll go ahead and set that one over here. And last and certainly not least, this is my favorite. Here we have an iPad 1st gen. This is the one that has that very strange like screen protector thing on the back that I'm struggling to peel off. Every time I try to get some of the corner off, it just rips and falls apart. It does not come off in one clean piece. So it's literally just a little tiny piece at a time, but this is a 32 gig model. It's in pretty good condition apart from being very filthy. And let's go ahead and slide to unlock. We're there. Here's the home screen. This is iOS 3. You know because it's got the iPod icon and it's missing Game Center, which was introduced in iOS 4. So let's head into settings and let me turn up the brightness. Then we'll go into general and about and check that out. 3.2.2. So the iPad 1st gen shipped with iOS 3.2. At the time, it was known as iPhone OS. It wasn't until iOS 4 that they actually updated that name from iPhone OS to iOS. And let me get on the Wi-Fi here. We'll test out the iOS 3 App Store. I'm sure it's not working, but we will give it a try. And for whatever reason, the iPad 1st gen is so difficult to find on iOS 3. I don't understand why that is. I have a few theories. We'll get into that right after we see if the App Store is working. No go there. Is iTunes working? No. Actually, interestingly, it's showing that I have 1 bar for Wi-Fi. I don't know why that is. The other devices picked it up just fine. I wonder if there's some sort of connection issue with this specific device. But back to iOS 3, why is it so hard to find on the iPad? Truthfully, I don't really know. There's no, you can't update the software over the air, obviously, on iOS 3 or iOS 4. So you would have had to physically connect and plug into a computer with a cable before you could even see the update to install it. I guess they did do that. I wouldn't have imagined that everybody with a 1st gen iPad did that, but I guess a lot of the people that picked up a 1st gen iPad were also the ones kind of early adopters and who were more interested in tech than the average person because this was such a new device. It was literally a new product category at the time that Apple was pioneering. So if you picked up a 1st gen iPad, you probably had pretty strong interest in Apple or technology, and that meant you were more likely to seek out software updates instead of them being spoon-fed to you. So that's why people with a 1st gen iPad were much more likely to update their software. And unfortunately for us who collect these, that makes it really, really difficult to find an iPad on iOS 3. But we'll take a quick look here. I'll go ahead and just show you all the screens here. So if you're trying to find an iPad 1st gen on iOS 3 and you're having some difficulty, maybe the seller didn't post good pictures, you can look through here and see all of the different menu options if by chance the seller has included a random picture from the settings app. You can see what everything looks like here. It's a very simple setting. There are not many options. I mean, look over here. There's hardly any different categories to choose from. Battery percentage even has its own tab there inside of the general. That's how sparse the settings app is. There's not much going on here inside of settings, and that's literally it. So there's not even multitasking. So I double click the home button, nothing happens. That was introduced in iOS 4. This is the only iOS 3 that gets a home screen wallpaper. So the 3GS did not have that until the iOS 4 update, same with the iPod Touch. But one thing I love, apart from the specialty of finding one of these, is the iOS 3 wallpapers. I mean, check these things out. There are some really unique ones here. This one was exclusive to the iPad on iOS 3. Same with this one. And this one was not. This this wallpaper is exclusive on the iPad on iOS 3. And I think this one is as well. Never even seen that before. So some really interesting wallpapers here on the first gen iPad on iOS 3. This one, while it looks like some other ones, I believe is exclusive there to that first gen iPad. So some really cool wallpapers. This is by far my favorite. It looks like a desert oasis of some kind, and it's just really special. I don't know why Apple took this away. I think it looks very clean here on our devices. And of course, we've got that stock iPad wallpaper. This one here, they actually reintroduced that. I forget which version of iPad OS that came back on, but I think you can still get that as a default wallpaper. So there you have it. That's been a quick look at 4 special iPads. We've got our first gen on iOS 3. We've got a third gen on iOS 7.0. We got a second gen on iOS 4. And then we've got that oddball second gen with the passcode lock, which is can require a few extra steps to get working. But there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been a really cool unboxing, and it's always fun to get these special and rare devices. So thank you so much for watching, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in another one of my videos.